unexplained experiences, you are in the right place. For Indian River Hauntings presents Encounters with the Other Side. The ghost guy, Larry Lawson, is your host. With years of experience in law enforcement, he knows how to search for the truth. Stay right here as Larry and his guests from around the world discuss paranormal evidence and answer your questions about encounters with the other side.
And welcome back, everyone, to Encounters with the Other Side. I'm your host, Larry Lawson, otherwise known as the Ghost Guy. And with us in studio is the guy that runs the board and handles all the problems, Mr. Cliff Desmond.
The radio guy.
The radio guy. That's right, folks. So happy to be back with you. First day of December 2021. It's been an interesting year. Want to tell you how you can listen to us. First of all, you can hear us live on WPSL 1590. But you can also hear us on the website, www.wpsl.com.
There's a red button. It says listen live. When you click it, it opens up the TuneIn app, which you can also install on your phone.
That's right, the TuneIn app. That's the other way to do it. You can also get us on Google Home and Alexa. Now, let's say you missed the entire live feed. You can still hear this show on YouTube, the video feed for this show as well as the audio.
That's right. The video and audio, we doctor it up after with a little editing to put titles on it, and we put it up on YouTube. Yeah, make you look better and make sure that everybody knows how to spell your names right, which includes your guests. So that'd be on YouTube. It could take up to 24 hours for us to get it up there. Pretty busy this time of the year, but we're moving right along with everything. So keep your fingers crossed.
That's right. And folks, this is also a call-in show. So I'd encourage you to call in with your thoughts, comments, opinions, as long as they're family friendly. 772-340-1590 if you want to call in and ask questions of myself or my guests. And I got a great one today, Cliff. I can't wait to tell you about him. But first, I want to do a couple of shout outs. First, I want to talk about our good friends at Paradolia Brewery on Cleveland Street in Sebastian, Florida. Pete is always coming up with exciting new brews, and this time his latest, according as of last night, waffle cone vanilla coffee, which he suggests to me because it's a pretty heavy stout, which I prefer. He's also talking about strawberry milkshake IPA, and here's the one that I think sounds most interesting: is Mythical Proportions IPA. It's kind of heavy on the hip.
Ooh,
yeah, so it sounds pretty good. But I also want to say hi to Sherry Nicky at Doodlebug Dowsing, the folks that we get all of our dowsing rods from for our work. My good friend Ike Enzi out in New Mexico and his show IDK Paranormal. I strongly urge you to check him out. Annabis Paranormal Research Organization, Chris George, both Chris and as well as Ike have been on the show. So check him out on Facebook and YouTube. And Ghost Girls up in Ohio, we had her on a couple of weeks ago. Mandy Cummings, that was a terrific show. Upcoming events, we've got our schedule up on the website, www.indianriverhauntings.com, for our December tours. And we've got a Fellsmere Paranormal event coming out on December 18th. So a whole lot of things going on this Christmas time, Cliff. Also want to remind everybody about our t-shirt contest. If you're interested and you want a chance at winning an Indian River Hauntings t-shirt, get a hold of me on my website, email ghostguy59@gmail.com. Tell me a little bit about the show that you listen to. And when you do that, I'll enter you into a contest for a drawing on the 22nd to see who wins a t-shirt from Indian River Hauntings. Websites again, indianriverhauntings.com and paranormalfbi.com. Our show, TV show it's up on YouTube now on our YouTube channel, Indian River Hauntings. So take a look at that. Lots going on. But I want to get into this show because I've got a terrific guest today. His name is Mr. Gary Ranson. He is a well-known paranormal investigator on the Isle of Wight, which is a small island off the south coast of England, well known to be haunted. Heck, all of England is well known to be haunted. But Gary is one of the experts on that island on the world of the paranormal, and I'm very, very excited on having him with us today. He's a lifelong resident of the Isle of Wight. It's a small island on that south coast of England. He is an aircraft engineer by trade, but currently works as a locomotive engineer. He's had several encounters with the other side as a child and became fascinated with the writings of paranormal author and fellow Isle of Wight resident Gaynor Baldwin. But it was about 12 years ago that Gary became encouraged to begin a serious inquiry into and research into what exists on the other side based upon something that happened. And we're going to hear about that story. I can't wait for you to hear it. It's pretty exciting. So Gary, welcome to Encounters with the Other Side, my friend.
Hello, thanks for having me.
So Gary, tell us a little bit about your journey into investigating and researching the world of the paranormal.
Okay, yeah. So the first sort of thing that was a bit odd wasn't possibly a paranormal, but more a sort of clairvoyant thing. Was one day I was.
Gary, if I could get you to just get a little closer to the microphone. We're having a little.
Okay, is that better?
Much better, thank you. Go ahead.
Right. Yeah. So it was kind of not a paranormal, more of a clairvoyant type thing. Was I used to help my dad on his milk round. This particular time, I wasn't on his milk round. I was having a day off, but he used to walk past my bedroom, just check on me on his way to the bathroom, whatever. And he saw me sat bolt upright in the bed, and he says, "You all right?" No, Brenda said they're coming up the sewer. And he said, "You what?" So Brenda said they're coming up the sewer. He said, "You've been on the bottle?" I went, No. Went back to sleep. The next day I was on this Carnival Queen float, and it was the form of carnival band, and they were dressed up as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And Brenda used to run the tableau. And someone said, "Oh, where's the band?" And she said, "They're late. They must be coming up the sewer." And I thought, "Oh, that's a bit weird." So the next thing was that sort of put something in my mind. There's some kind of connection going on there somewhere, you know. The next thing was, as a joke, purely as it wasn't a joke. It was a fun evening out. There was a lovely old building called the Brading Waxworks, which is in the village of Brading. It's one of the oldest mansions on the island, and it was invited to a ghost event with the Isle of Wight Paranormal Society.
And this was how long ago, Gary?
This was probably about 15 years ago now, I suppose.
Okay.
We paid £25 each to go in, and we had to run at the place from 8 at night to about 4 in the morning. And it consisted of the group had set up several different scenarios, like spirit board, trigger objects, and they would do an event and then have a tea break. Now, what me and my friend decided, because we were both engineers at the time, was we would sneak off and try and replicate what they had been doing, see if we could get the same results. And nothing really happened like that at all, really, apart from the crystal. They do this thing with the crystal. And me and my mate sneaked off into this priest hole, and this other girl joined us and said, "Do you mind if I join you? I've noticed you've been sneaking off." I said, "Yeah, we're just trying to prove or disprove what these guys are up to. Can we get the same results?" You know, we did this crystal thing. Now, obviously, you can only ask certain questions, yes, no, you know, but you could get it to tap on the side numbers. So we were able to ask it questions and get dates. Also, as engineers, you try to rephrase a question to make sure that you get the same answer or the same components, like 2 + 2 = 4, so 4 - 2 = 2, so you know it works, you know. So we'd rephrase the questions to see if we got the same result. And we got down to the fact that it was a boy. He'd died in unnatural circumstances that may have been an accident. But more importantly, it was the date. We managed to get the 9th, got him to tap 9 times. So he said, "Can you confirm that's the 9th?" Yes.
I didn't quite hear that. What's the name?
His name was Graham Birtwell. He was a young boy.
Okay.
About 6½. I found his name out later on. Yeah, he said he died in unnatural circumstances, which we put to him was possibly a road accident. But he gave the date 9th of November 1961. Now, that's quite a modern spirit, as it were. So our county press, the local sort of paper over here, they've got a great archive system. So off I trotted with this in my mind and went through the paper on the microfiche. And after 3 hours, I didn't find anything much at all. And then I got to thinking, well, I was looking in births, deaths, and obituaries, which was kind of an expensive thing to put in then. I thought, if it was a tragic accident, maybe I'm not looking in the right place. So I went back through those papers again, and after about an hour and a half, I found this tiny little paragraph, which really didn't sum up the demise of this poor lad. And it said, 9th November 1961, a young boy by the name of Graham Birchwell, aged 6.5, died in a collision with a motorcycle and was riding on the handlebar of his friend's push bike. And that was wow. For me, that was proof, because it gave categorical accuracy of something or other. These were dates we could not.
Oh, a little froze there. Can you still hear me, Gary? Yep, you froze up a little bit there.
Fucked out of the air, you know, and that. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I'm okay now.
Yeah, yeah, you're fine. Well, I find this particularly interesting, Gary, because here you had an event happen at a just a random paranormal event that you went to. You actually got a name, you got an event, and then your historical research has been able to put it all together and found out that not only was the name accurate, but the event was accurate. That is pretty spectacular.
Yeah, and that really rocked my world a bit, to be honest, because although I was Christian like most people are, you don't really get a choice in your religion necessarily when you're born. You know? And I was always a skeptic of, I'll believe what's put in front of me. I'd believe in God if that presented itself to me, you know, then I'd probably believe in it. But this really sort of changed my angle on the world in being a bit more spiritual. After that, I definitely believe that there's something in this.
So from this point on is when you began to earnestly investigate what strange happenings on the other side. Now, tell us a little bit about the Isle of Wight. Now, there's no question that England has been known for its paranormal activity. I mean, it's heck, the very first paranormal society in the world was created in London. The Isle of Wight, though, holds a certain level of mystery. Can you share that with us?
Okay, yeah. So I think the fact that we are completely surrounded by water, and we have been invaded by just about everyone going, from Romans, Celts, Normans. We even had the Germans here at one point. So I think I think it's definitely something to the fact that we've had nearly everybody here at some point. But I think what got me going was these books here. So this was Gay Baldwin's book. She's made 7 now. She's written 7 books.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just a great little read, and particularly where they're pertinent to the island. And just sit there and read. And they're only short little stories and anecdotes, but they relate to things that being on an island, you know where these places are.
Mm-hmm.
And because there's so much material there, it does make you sort of think, okay, this is a bit unusual. But towards the back, there was some more to do with photographic stuff. Now, Chris Huff obviously is doing a section on photographs,
right.
Which we come up with some really good material on that. I made a contact through Gaynor, okay, and she sent me the originals. Plus, I also got some bonus material as well, which was pretty fantastic stuff, has to be said. Stuff that appears on camera is quite rare, and normally the stuff that people see is normally transparent. But these were solid objects. These were not see-through, and these were objects that shouldn't have been there.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some good stuff, yeah.
And where was it? Where were these taken?
So again, all on the island. There's one was in a friend's garage. He just happened to mention me after putting these photographs up with Chris.
Right.
You know, Chris does such a fantastic job of narrating and collating the stuff and putting it together.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Oh, I've got one of. You not seen the one of me in the garage?" No, I've been a friend of him for years. And he sent this picture of this guy next to him. You can quite clearly see that the head is blurred. It's more of a this character is more in sort of like a black and white image, which is weird. But it's the fact you can make out the detail of his wristwatch, like he's going for a grab on him and one hand on his shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a local one in his garage. There was, I think, probably the best one is the lighthouse picture.
Yeah, the lighthouse. I've seen that one.
Yeah, the chaps that were blown up during the war, and this guy went in to fit in a new service system for British Telecom. He was the only one that had a key. He made sure when he locked up, no one was in there. Just stood back to take a couple of pictures. And these pictures were one frame after another. You can see the cloud formation has moved literally not at all. And in one picture, there's nothing, but in the other picture, there's quite clearly a solid figure up there. And more importantly, when you look at it, although you can't see the detail because it's a silhouette, you can tell the difference between the lighthouse keeper's uniform and Army Surge. This is definitely some kind of what I would call an Army Surge outfit. It's a bit more poofed out. So we think we know that's what that is. There was another photograph taken in woods of someone just taking a picture of their granddaughter playing around, chucking leaves around. And in the background is this colour image, a colour ghost. That's pretty rare. And it's like a dark grey priest sort of cassock type thing. And it looks like he's holding a bird with a long neck in his hand. You can't see the head, but you can see the hands and you can see the sort of breast area. And that's like, whoa, what's that? You know, that's not camera imagery. That's not something that's accidentally got on there because it fits in right behind the person's head. So you've got all the hair detail and everything, which would be very difficult to Photoshop, you know. And there was another one taken in a churchyard as well, which was the sort of typical sort of white translucent type thing. So I wasn't too keen on that one, but it was another. But the best one that I think we've got on the island is a ghost ship. How many people have a ghost ship? It's a thing of folk, the Flying Dutchman, all that. Well, I've seen this boat twice. It's the HMS Eurydice or Eurydice.
HMS who?
It's difficult to spell. It's Echo Uniform Romeo Yankee Delta India Charlie Echo. It's either Eurydice or Eurydice. I'm not quite sure on exact pronunciation. But it was a training ship that capsized in the snow. Basically, the ice formed up too much and it just rolled over. And I think because of the person that was associated with this piece of film, so we had Prince Edward on the Isle of Wight filming a series called Crown and Country. And they were talking about this very vessel at the time on a cliff face. And unfortunately, they've re-edited the original edit because the original edit, he does the whole film, the whole documentary, but then there's like a blooper reel at the end. And they say, no, this is the ghost ship we caught on camera. And it showed this fully rigged vessel coming in behind him, behind shot, but it never came out the other side. And the cameraman actually goes around and looks around the prints to see where it's gone, and it's not there. So we've got some stills of that, which I've managed to sort of rag off. We managed to get some of those. And I think because of who he was and the fact that he was quite open at the time to have this put up, obviously things have changed now and it's been removed, but that's pretty awesome. I mean, I've seen it myself. I've seen it sail under the cliffs. And what's weird is you've got billowing sails, but no noise.
What year was this ship in service?
1878, something like that, I think, without being too accurate on that. It's about the mid 1870s, late 1870s.
And it went right down off your coast there. So it would have been generally where you saw it on the film. And
yeah, it would have been sailing around the island on a sort of a training exercise. It was refloated and actually reused. That was the weird thing about it for a little bit.
And you've seen it yourself. And isn't that some of the, I mean, people will always look at photographs and say, well, it's this, it's that, it's pareidolia, you're not really seeing it, but you've seen it yourself. And that's one thing that folks don't take into account. So many people have personally witnessed these types of events. Only half the time, maybe even less, we can actually prove it with an actual photograph. When you saw it, you weren't able to photograph it though, correct?
No. I mean, I think a lot of the things that I've witnessed are things that are probably the better things because you're not actually actively searching for it. They're things that have happened in your day job, something like that, and then you sort of look, hang on a minute, you know, like the one that I mentioned about the train station. So before I was a driver, I was a conductor, so I was the one collecting the tickets, and we stopped at the station, and the train rolled in, and I jumped out. And I saw this couple at the back of the train getting on with this sort of Victorian clothing with a silver cross type pram, the big sort of bouncy ones, you know, very ornate ones. And I was thinking, what, how are they going to get that on through that door? That is not going to fit. But they got on a train, and it was a quiet train. So I said to the driver, I'm just going to have a bimble down the back and I'll see what's going on. And I got down there and they were not there. And I checked everywhere. There's no way they could have moved this thing down the corridor. They would have had to have stayed in the compartment where they were.
Mm-hmm.
I went to the toilet. They weren't in the toilet. In fact, they weren't in the whole train. By the time we got to the next stop, I'd walked back to the driver and got off. And then to my bemusement, they got off. I actually turned around to the driver and said, tell me you can see them. To which she said, yeah, I can see them. Why? I said, they weren't on the train. She said, I saw them get on like you did. I went, I know what you're saying, but there's no way that could have got on. You know, it's too big to get through the door.
Yeah. So what's
like on my dad's milk round was another one, the teddy bear story, you know, teddy bear house, as I call it. So there's this house in Carisbrook called Teddy Bears. Now I knew my dad's milk round very, very well that I could jump ahead of him and do the next call. And this particular call were unusual because I had what I call blue top milk, quite unusual. So I went down and took the milk down to this house and I knocked on the door. And I could hear him say, oh, the milkman's here for his milk money. You know, hurry up, open the door. And they were taking a bit of a time about this. So I knocked again. I mean, well, I can hear them. I can hear them on the other side of the door. So I decided just to have a peek without being too nosy. And the house was strangely very empty. There was no furniture in there. And I thought, this is really weird. So again, tapped the door and I could hear them saying, hurry up, will you answer the door and let him open the door, let him have his money. To which I thought, right, these are an old couple that I knew were nice people, not the sort of people that be sort of trying to mug you off some money. So I took the milk back with me and marched back to my dad, and he sort of said, where have you been? You know, I said, well, I just went to Teddy Bears to get the milk money, but I said they didn't want to answer the door. And he sort of looked at me and laughed. He said, so you're telling me you heard them behind the door? I went, yeah, they were faffing about. They wouldn't answer the door. That's why I brought the milk back. He went, you'd have a problem because they're both dead.
How long had they died? How long before that incident had they died? Did your father tell you?
It'd probably been about a year since I'd last done that call, but I knew it was still fresh in my mind that was the next call on that day. And
how old were you at the time when this happened? You were still a kid, right?
Probably about 17 then. So that was an unusual one, you know.
Did your father have any member of your family ever have any belief in the afterlife or in the paranormal, or
absolutely not?
So he must have found that interesting. Well, I'll tell you what, I got a bunch of other things I want to chat with you about, but we need to take a quick break. So folks, stay with us. We're going to take a quick commercial break and be back to you in just a minute.
Would you like the opportunity to participate in a paranormal adventure? Indian River Hauntings is your connection for historical walking tours and events with a paranormal twist. Learn historical facts and haunted stories about Vero Beach, Sebastian, and Fellsmere. Guests get a hands-on experience and use investigative equipment to see for themselves what can and cannot be explained. Book your ghost tour or contact Larry Lawson for a custom event at the website IndianRiverHauntings.com.
This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
Continue to play with this guy.
Oh, Cliff, you got somebody else on there.
Well, no, what happened was the network came up before I turned it down.
I thought maybe it was a ghost.
But did you hear what it said, though?
No, I missed it.
Well, I'm not quite sure what I heard. I'd just leave it up to somebody else to speculate.
I missed it. So if somebody heard what that was, call us in and let us know. So we're back with my guest today, Gary Ranson from the Isle of Wight in England, the tiny little island that sits off the south coast of England and known as a paranormal hotspot. We've got Gary here as one of the foremost investigators on that island. He's had a lot of interesting things happen. So we've heard some pretty cool stories, Gary. A lot of things that have happened to you over the years. Have you sort of formalized, do you do formalized investigations now?
Yeah, I joined a small group called Isle of Wight Spirit Chasers, run by my good friend Paul Morgan.
Uh-huh.
And we've been doing graveyard visits when it's nice weather, because that's a good place to get stuff. You know, probably one of my best results there ever, I would say, probably. We've also done a couple of investigations with houses. We've debunked a few. We've caught one guy out that was a fraud that was trying to get hold of the house from his mother.
Oh, well, tell us about that one, because I think sometimes folks look at paranormal investigators and think that they see a ghost or an apparition behind every door. Truth of the matter is, most of the time it's explainable, and you actually caught somebody trying to pull a fast one. Tell us about that.
Okay, so Paul had messaged me to say we had a house investigation to do. So he gave me the address. I did a bit of investigation into the property. It was a 1950s retirement property built by the council. No real sort of history with, or issue with history there. It wasn't very old. There was a couple of old residents that had lived there that possibly died there. Nothing much really. But the complaint, as it were, was that this lady in her 80s was being dragged out of bed and dumped on the floor.
Dragged out of bed and dumped on the floor.
Yeah, this is a physical
elderly lady.
Yeah, and we were keen to stop this. You know, whatever it is, we've got to stop it. You know, so we went out to this property. The son was the person that raised the complaint, which was a bit odd because he lived in one of these bungalows a bit further down, and he had a key. So we were doing a baseline sweep round of EMF meters, K2s, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we walked into the bedroom where she hadn't slept for some time, where this stuff was happening. And it was quite buzzing, to be honest. And my opinion was that there was too many sockets in that one room that can create a bit of magnetism EMF, which can cause people headaches and stuff like that. And I said, I think you've got too much going on in here, which won't help. You know, that could give you headaches and all sorts of other problems.
What kind of equipment was causing the EMF? Do you remember?
Just loads and loads of sockets. She had like a daisy chain and a daisy chain and a daisy chain of electrical sockets, which just creates magnetic fields, which you're going to walk in and out of.
If I can interrupt you for a second, so folks who understand, one of the phenomenons we deal with, in fact, if you look in the studio that I'm in right now, surrounded by heavy electronic equipment, and if you're in a room that's emitting a lot of EMF for over a significant period of time, you can begin to, and there's nothing paranormal about it, but it can mess with your head and make you feel paranoid. You see things, hear things. So, and that's kind of what you're describing was in this room, right, Gare?
Yeah, and also it was part of our base sweep of the property to find out what is the baseline there, where are there any spikes that we need to avoid,
Sure.
Detection wise. But then what happened was, now animals are fantastic. They're probably the best indicator, because
I agree.
Dogs will follow things around the room. If you're sat there with a dog and something walks in, you'll see it track whatever it is round. If there's something they don't like, they will back away. Now, she had this lovely black and white collie, absolutely lovely dog. And her son walked in, and this dog shut under the table. And I just looked at Paul and thought, something not going on here. He's done something to this animal. This animal doesn't like him for some reason. And whenever he was in the room when we were conducting experiments, we got results. When he wasn't there, there wasn't any results. So that was a bit odd. It seemed like whenever he was there, he was the presence, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
He then made out that this daughter had passed away, Peggy, and that she'd attached herself to this really dodgy vacuum formed plastic imitation wall clock. Now, I'm pretty sure that spirits do sometimes attach themselves, but they have a bit of style and class. I don't think this spirit would have attached itself to this horrible wall clock.
Okay.
And I sort of looked at Paul and thought, no, I'm not having this. But whenever he was there, we got reactions. So I just asked Paul, can you do me a favor? Can you do a face-to-face exercise with him? And I'm going to scan him, because I believe he's got something concealed on him somewhere. It's funny that when he's here, something's going off. And I scanned him with a K2, and I got an instant reaction from one of his pockets. And I thought, oh, hello, what we got in there then? So, because I was a little bit upset with the fact that we were devoting our time. You know, we don't charge any. This is just something that we do for interest or to help people.
Sure.
We'd spent a few hours here, and I was a little bit like jabbing in his pocket. What's that in there? You know, he went, oh no, it's my wallet. I said, well, can you show me, please? I'd like to see it. To which he then pulled out a phone, and I went, is your phone on? And he just pressed it, and it lit up. I went, so you've probably been pressing that in your pocket because that will give your spike. If someone presses a button on a mobile phone,
Absolutely, yeah,
it brings the screen up. That will light you. Yeah, that will light your K2 up. So we were a little bit disheartened, and we sort of said, look, we're here trying to help your mother. You know, this has set us back a little bit now. But then this sort of, for me, this took, it's not like a sixth sense at all, but I started to think more about what was going on here. So I asked the lady, are you on any medication? To which she said she was on tramadol. Now, that's a pretty pokey thing. And I was thinking, well, there's got to be an angle going on here. And it suddenly dawned on me kind of what was happening, because he had a key and he could let himself at any time. So the property, if it's a council property, used to be able to be signed over to your next of kin. So I come to the assumption that he was dragging her out of bed once she'd gone to sleep and she was under her influence of tramadol, then drag her out of bed and leave her there, and then in the morning come in and see her in the morning on the floor. And yeah, that for us was what was going on. There was no activity there at all apart from him.
Well, I've got to commend you. First of all, you walk in there and you see the dog reacting. A lot of, especially newer groups, maybe that haven't done many investigations, would see that and automatically come to a conclusion, but you didn't. You continued to look. You continued to look what was going on. You observed the fact that your equipment was only going off when he was in the room. You did a scan, and sure enough, you had and you caught him basically flicking the phone on and off, making your gear go off, and then going on to find out more about the property and the possibility that he was going to inherit the property. Well done. And that's kind of almost a gold standard, how we need to investigate, look for the logical reasons first. And sometimes we're going to find folks that are doing something nefarious such as that. So my compliments to you, sir, on uncovering that. We've had a couple of cases like that ourselves, where folks were trying to, for whatever reason, pull something in one case, possibly over a governmental agency. They were trying to pull it over. So you did well. So not everything is paranormal is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, I mean, as an engineer, if I put my science head on, and this is how I do try to do stuff, I do have a belief in spirituality, no problem with that at all. But I also do try to put the scientific hat on now. I think I told you about the film Holland Falls, where John Malkovich plays the character Thomas Timms, who invents the A-bomb. And he gives this talk about how do you think about the world? He says, well, you know, he says, right here, I'm stood here with a dead body. I'm trying to investigate, you know. And he says, well, we're all stood on empty space. He said, the very thing we stood on is empty space. It's just loads of little atoms whizzing around. And that got me thinking. When I watched that, I thought, oh, I know this isn't acted script, but that's what you're told at school. And then you sort of think, well, there is something in that. Now, I believe that if I was a scientist, possibly, if I didn't believe in spirituality, that a paranormal event could be a recording that's recording the fabric of a building through its atomic structure, because everything can be charged positive or negatively. A CD is only a piece of material which is charged with the right magnetism to create the image or the audio file. So therefore, it's possible that a building or substrate material could record something. Now, when I put my spiritualist hat on, or my sort of ghost investigator type thing, what I don't understand is when the thing that you're interacting with has free will, or will then come up with something which is specific to something you just are. Now, for me, that's the real wow moment when that happens.
Well, Gary, what do you think it is? What do you think the phenomenon is in your gut? Can't always put a scientific.
Absolutely.
What do you think this is?
Paranormal. Yeah. I don't. Yes, paranormal is what we call it, but I think it's more spiritual. I do believe that there's something more to us than anything else on this planet. Dogs have a sixth sense. Cats also seem to have a sixth sense. We as humans are denuded from that for some reason. Some of us do, some don't. But I think what's odd about it is we're different from any other animal in the way that we communicate, in the way that we are. I know there's like pictures and hieroglyphs in Egypt of the aliens coming down and sort of thing. And you do wonder if someone did mess with the evolution of us on this planet, because we are quite a lot different to anything else that walks on the planet. And I think there's something in that, maybe, possibly.
So do you think there's a connection between aliens and the paranormal phenomenon that we investigate? Do you see a correlation?
Not so much, but there's I just believe that the human beings are a lot different from anything else on the planet. We are. We've developed a communication way of deep talking, and within that, there's also different national dialects as well. You sort of like, does a French cow speak different moo to an English cow? Is an English cow like moo and a French cow like le moo? You know,
I've never quite heard it put like that, but touche. I'll accept that. Okay.
We you know, there is something about the human being and the fact that we are believers, some of us, in this thing. And when you get a recording or a paranormal event, it does hark back to something from the past, which is really interesting. It could also be about wavelengths. You know, are we seeing like stars are seen from space, and they could be gone for all we know because it takes so long for light to get here? Are we seeing something that's come from the past, just a bit slower through the wavelength of light or whatever? You know, there's so much that you know, no one can put a finger on it, and that's what really attracts us to it, because it's interesting. When people say, "Oh, ghosts have why haven't they been caught on camera?" Well, they have been. They are on camera. There are certain things that have slipped through with it. You know, I wonder if they go to like ghost hell, like you were caught on camera. You know?
You'll be punished.
Yeah.
Quick sidebar. A picture that came out of England, and it's probably 10, 11 years old now. And it was I forget which king's castle, but a security camera shows some doors opening and a hooded figure. Are you familiar with that picture?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
This kind of sidebar here on you for a second. Your thoughts? Was that real or was that staged? Do you remember?
I think when it comes to security cameras, I have a bit of not a niggling doubt, because it's almost like it's set up. You know, this camera is always trained on this. Yes, it's quite possible this stuff gets caught on CCTV. It is going to happen. You know, statistically, it's likely to happen somewhere. But I think when you see this stuff on the internet and it's like ghost caught on camera, the camera is aiming. It's not an abstract view. It's aiming right at the subject matter. Now,
yeah,
it's
kind of curious.
Possible. But it's just, to me, it's a little bit.
Your discussion made me think about that. I'm intrigued by your thoughts on what exactly the spiritual question is. What are your thoughts then on reincarnation of spirits coming back? Do you have any opinions on that?
Yeah, I've got a bit of an experience there, really.
Okay.
So most of the houses I think 7 houses I've lived in, 3 had something going on, you know. Now, when I had a bit of a tragic incident in that my mother was 75 when she passed away, and my dad passed 9 weeks later. He was 59. And when my mum passed, I had 2 young girls who I didn't really know how to break it to them that their nan had died. And I've got them ready for the morning and picked the eldest one up in the arms, and she waved out the window. And I said, "Oh, who are you waving to?" She said, "I'm waving to Nanny." I went, "Nanny?" She said, "Yeah, Nanny. Can't you see she's by the palm tree?" Now, I did not question this at all, because she was young enough to not know that there is such a thing as spirits or ghosts. So I wave back, you know, oh, hi, Mum, you know. And I think that's probably why they are more sensitive, because they don't know about what is and what isn't. That's probably why they're a bit more open, channeled mind to their mind and what they see. And probably why children are a lot more receptive, is because they've got an innocent mind. And later on, probably about 3 weeks later, I was in the garden picking some leaves up by that very location. Now, people say that robins, they believe that robins are reincarnated. Well, I wasn't quite sure about this, and I'm still not, but I had this robin that flew down, and it was hovering in front of me, fluttering its wings, but kind of like at me. It didn't sit down on a branch or go anywhere else. It was kind of in my face. And I was like thinking, well, hello, fella, you know, do you want some food, sort of thing? And I thought, no, this thing is kind of pestering me. It's like I was in its garden. You know, I'm thinking, oh, is that you? You know, I know it sounds daft. I'm like, is that you, Mum? Yeah, if it is, hi. You know, I think sometimes people like to revisit family if they can. I do think there's something.
So do you?
It's not necessarily reincarnation, but revisiting.
Okay. So do you think that that would be a case of reincarnation, or just the use of some other entity to let you know, hey, I'm okay?
Possibly. I mean, I don't want to sound like a cuckoo bird-related pun there, but yeah, this little robin did sort of make me think his attitude or her attitude was not a normal bird attitude.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, as my daughter had seen something there, it was quite funny. And then my daughter later reported something sitting on the bed, which again, something which she doesn't know about. So I was inclined to believe. And she said, well, maybe it's just someone wants to say hello. Now, I don't know if it's one of my parents who visited, but later on, they said that this was a bloke called Terry who used to live there. Now, Terry did used to live there, and he died there.
Okay. Well, okay.
So that's quite interesting, because they have their own little paranormal instance right there, and they came up with a name that was accurate, and I hadn't put them up to that. That was straight off the cuff.
Well, and I find this whole issue, there's so many questions that we have not yet found the answers to. One of them, I asked you about the reincarnation angle, because one of my favorite stories is about a young boy who, as I think a 3 or 4-year-old, was identifying aircraft from the Second World War, and ended up talking about basically burning in an airplane going down. He had no way to have known about it, and then his family did research to find out that the name he kept giving was of a pilot off an escort carrier in the Pacific during the Second World War, and they were actually able to put all of those names and things together. And how in the world did a young 3 and 4-year-old child, how were they able to do that? So I find that whole angle fascinating. In fact, I think I want to say it's the University of Virginia, but I could be wrong. They have a whole program that is just studying that angle. And I think that's another part of the spiritual angle of our paranormal research that I don't know that gets a lot of attention or a lot of time spent on it.
Yeah, there was I remember a documentary on TV going on about 20 years ago about a young boy who was living in London, but he had strong memories of a house somewhere up north. And he actually had really strong enough premonitions that he said to his mum, I think I know where the house is. I can take you there. And so she drove him to his house. He gave the directions to this house. And then they went inside the house, and he told this person everything about the house. There's no possible way he could have known that. That was, yeah, there's something about that. I think sometimes if we haven't learned our life's lesson, maybe we have to come back and learn again. You know?
Yeah, and I've heard some folks with the medium psychic abilities describe about the spirit world, and basically there is the ability to be recycled, for lack of a better term, in order to learn more and to attain a higher level. It's just fascinating, and quite frankly, that's beyond me. The folks that have that gift are, I don't know if I envy them or pity them, because that could be kind of distracting way to live life, you know, but
yeah, I kind of got something on that as well. Because I was there for both my parents to help them on.
right.
I say help them on, I didn't like. So when my mum died, my dad was there, and I think one of the things about death is that no one actually describes or tells you what happens right now when they've died. What do you do with them? And my mum died in the hospital from a terminal illness, which is MS, which gradually caused her to sort of basically suffocate because of her bone structure.
Mhm.
And we was there, and I was there lucky enough to hear her last heartbeat, which was quite interesting because obviously I was checking on that, and I heard the last heartbeat. And then I went off to see the nurses to say, what do I do now? You know, what do we do now? I didn't want my dad to have to do anything, and it was kind of cold because they said you have to take a jewelry off her, which feels like you're robbing them while they're still warm, you know. So I did that for my dad. I said, look, I'm ever so sorry. I've got to do this. That's what I've been told to do. And then after I'd done that, and I'd given some time with dad, with her, I opened the window up. He said, out you go. Because before she'd passed, she had started talking about people in her life that I knew existed in her life. My dad didn't ask her too much about her past, but I did, because she had quite a few really cool secrets, which she didn't tell me until later on in life. And when my dad died, because it was 9 weeks later, I hadn't had a chance to think about my mum at all, really, but I knew that the reason why he died was because he wanted to be with her. That was absolutely broken-hearted, you know. And I was sat in bed with him, and he basically had a stroke, so they had to switch him off.
Mhm.
And I know that apparently your speech or your hearing is the last thing to go, so I was talking to him as he slipped away. But every time I said to him, he said, look, yeah, you've got to go to mum, you know. And when I mentioned her name, it was almost like there was a gentle breeze blowing across, almost as if she was stroking us. Yeah, I know it sounds a bit, you know, melodramatic way, but there was definitely, it was in an air-conditioned room where there was an air pressure. There was no blowing or drafts. It was in an enclosed room, and there was definitely a gentle zephyr, if you like, whenever I mentioned her name. So I believe that she came back for him, you know. And I think spiritually that's affected me, because I believe when you say about reincarnation and coming back and not learning your life's lesson the first time, I think that definitely puts a hold on me in that I've met the person in my life who I absolutely adore, and there's nothing that I want to do to upset my path onwards when it's time to go. And when my mum and dad went, I made sure that as much as I could, we had a few family rifts, and I tried to act as a partisan on both sides, because in my dad's interest, it was about closing the deal, as it were, that he was happy with, so that he could go on forwards, you know.
Mhm.
So I think it's definitely changed my point of view, in that I don't want to do any wrongdoing to anybody, if you see what I mean. And if I can help as many people as I can in my lifetime, then that's the way to go.
And that's why I guess we all do this. You mentioned earlier that, you know, you don't charge for these investigations, and I don't know if any group out there, any team out there that do conduct these investigations that do try charge anybody. In fact, it's considered unethical in our business to charge for that type of work. And I think that's why most of us do it, is to try to help others and gain understanding ourselves. On a collection data angle, does your team collect and keep the data for later examination review?
We keep EVP files. We did, I think the one that knocked, again, the other thing that knocked me off, literally did knock me off my feet, was we went to a graveyard, and there was a person interred there who was a friend of my partner, James. And she knew him because we're into rock and roll, 50s rock and roll. She knew him, he was a DJ. His wife is still around. She organises rock and roll dudes on the Isle of Wight. And Paul just said, look, I'm just going to put the recording on and just let you talk to him. So I was talking to him about his jukebox, about his dog, about his wife, about the events. And I just said, oh, I hope you can drive up there. And the speaker burst into life. It's a bit garbled, but you can hear, of course you can drive up here. And I literally nearly fell off my feet.
What was that? Say that again. What did you hear?
So I asked the question, I hope you can still drive up there. because I like dancers, Jay. And the response on speaker was, "Of course you can drive up here. It's a bit garbled, but you can make it out." And that's without any filtering at all. Now, for me, people say about PSV7s and stuff like that, it's stuff that's already on the airwaves. The chances of word like jive appearing, yes, jive would appear on a radio show quite possibly, but at that point in time, and in that correlation to that question I've just asked at that precise moment, that's pretty rare.
That is pretty rare.
Yeah, scientists will say it's probable. You know?
Well, unfortunately, my friend, we have run out of time. Some great stories. I really had some other things I wanted to get on with you about also regarding equipment stuff, but we'll have to do this again. What do you say?
Absolutely. Spot on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Gary Ranson from Isle of Wight in the United Kingdom, thank you so much for joining us. It was a great show. I appreciated you being on here with me. And folks, I want to thank you for joining us also. Remember to tune in every Wednesday from 11 to noon. We'll be here with great guests from all around the world discussing everything about the paranormal. By the way, next week we'll be talking Bigfoot. So in England, Bigfoot, Sasquatch in England, they call him wild man in England, actually.
The
So
wild man.
we'll
Okay,
be
we have the British pronunciation.
Yeah, so we'll be talking about that next week. But folks, thank you so much for being with us, listening. Stay with us. Take care of yourselves. More importantly, take care of your family. And until we meet again, I'll see you on the other side. Have a great week. Bye-bye now.
You've been listening to Encounters with the Other Side on WPSL Digital 1590 with archives on YouTube. To find the latest one, just go to WPSLTV.com, and then you can binge watch all of the Encounters with the Other Side that we have collected there so far. Today's show should be up there within 24 hours. I have to do a little post-production for you. Thank you. Great show. Special guest, of course, Gary Ranson, and of course, Larry, the Ghost Guy. Thank you, too. Okay?
Always here.
All righty. And that's our show for this week. Thanks for tuning in on WPSL Port St. Lucie. This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast on Google Home, Alexa, and the TuneIn app on your smartphone.